I know these people. It's just amazing to be in a film that you feel like you know the people.
The heart and soul of this movie, Paciencia y Fe, because it's true to like the journeys of all of the characters. They're all kind of like desperate to do something, and they want to do it fast.
I didn't, you know, this movie can't be bad because I live here. I'm gonna hear it from my neighbors for the rest of my life, what people think of this. And so,
Snavi is very much a man with a plan. Very much like, I mean, you hear it in the first song. You know, he's like, let me break down my life for you. You know, he talks about his, you know, he talks about his story. He talks about the business he runs. He talks about his neighborhood. He talks about the people that come in and out of his business, the people that are in and around his life. He also talks about, he immediately talks about his dream to go back to Dominican Republic, you know, and how he's got to get on that, and he eventually does.
Sometimes you just need to let go, and the only way to do that is to dance it out, dance the pain away, or sing the pain away. And these characters do that in more than one occasion.
the home court advantage we had in adapting In the Heights into a film was QUIARA, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright and my collaborator on writing the show. So I'm so thrilled that she was the creator of our screenplay, because I think she made really smart but really bold decisions in terms of the way in which this adapts to the screen. Everything from, instead of it taking place over 3 days, taking place over the course of a summer. So we have more time and we have more space, to things that really came out as a result of our collaboration. I remember QUIARA and John went on one of the first tech scouts. We just walked John and our producers around our neighborhood, showing them the heights that was important to us as residents. And Highbridge Pool was something that we came across in our travels, and them looking at each other being like, can 96,000 live here? And us learning that no movie's ever filmed in Highbridge Pool before, and to find virgin territory in Manhattan Island to film a musical sequence really was so inspired. So it really, you know, every moment on that screen is a collaboration between the filmmakers and QUIARA and I, the original writers.
Usually when you shoot in New York is the centerpiece. That is the big landscape. But in this movie, we really wanted the people and their minds to be that giant landscape. So what do people in New York dream about? What do people in Washington Heights dream about? And how far can that dream go? I love this idea that we got to express that, not just in dance, not just in music, not just in lyrics, not just in dialogue, but with the environment around them. Being able to shoot in Washington Heights was a very compelling idea for me, that putting their dreams and hopes inside the place that they live and call home was very exciting.
Nina, she is like everyone's baby, I feel like, in the neighborhood. Everyone is rooting for her. Everyone feels like she has this huge potential that everyone clearly sees. She's that girl in the neighborhood that everyone has put their hopes and dreams on her back, because they feel like she's always been exceptional at what she's done. Her father included, even Usnavi, Vanessa, everyone kind of sees her like, oh, she's gonna be fine, you know? And in a way, you know, that's a lot of pressure for someone to take on.
In the Heights is a story to me about finding home. And it's about whatever that means to you. And you get to see what that means to these characters. Because it's a different thing for each character. In the Heights is sort of about those sacrifices that we have to make. And it's as true back then on Broadway as it is back now. And it's just great to sort of, in the world we live in, as actors, we get the opportunity to, you know, it's not a sort of political statement, but we do get to speak to humanity and just where we are right now. And art has always been a reflection of reality. And so that's the great sort of beauty about this piece.
Well, she's an immigrant, number one. She has an American dream, like we all do. But she has gone through a very, very rough life. And she establishes herself in the Washington Heights neighborhood, and she doesn't have a family of her own, and so she adopts these people in the neighborhood, and this is her community, but this is her family, and people go to her for food, for advice, for warmth, for a hug. You know, she's the center of this community.
That Carnival day, that shoot day, was just special on a lot of different levels because it was actually happening in this tenement in the Heights, and you know, a couple of blocks from where Lin was, and I got very emotional several times. And Lin was, I'm not gonna be the teller, but he also, the acknowledgement of that's happening, that exuberance, that sense of community and neighborhood, all of those things that he envisioned, I think, as a seed when him and QUIARA, you know, thought about this in the beginning, was exemplified there in that space with all of those people. It was just, it was emotionally, it was like a really nice roller coaster, a real wave to ride, you know.
I got a FaceTime call from Lin, just like an anonymous number that I didn't know. My dad knew already, so he was just hiding the fact. He was like waiting for the FaceTime call. And like, I usually don't answer random numbers, so I was like, should I answer? And he was like, yeah, whatever. So I answered, but like, I just had the phone like out because I just wanted to see who it was first before I like showed my face. And then he just pops into frame and I'm like, whoa, Lin Manuel Miranda. So I just decided to like tilt it to me. And that's when he tells me like, hey, do you want to play Sonny and all that? And I was just like, oh my God, yes. But like, I'm a pretty like nonchalant person for the most part. So I was just kind of chill like on FaceTime. But as soon as like he hung up, I was just like, oh my God. And like, I didn't start crying or anything like that. But like, I was just so ecstatic to be able to portray such a great role in such like a great movie.
Daniela is, she's a warrior woman. She's a strong front foot woman who, you know, what you see is what you get. I think she has a great appetite for life. I love characters that have big appetites, and she's one of them. She speaks her mind. She doesn't let people cross her, que no le crucen, no la crucen. And she has a lot of love in her heart. I think she's a matriarch of her community. She looks up to Abuela Claudia, because, you know, Claudia's her auntie. Claudia is like Daniela's auntie, but these are the strong female archetypes of a community. Women who do hair get in your head, literally. And they, you know, it's where you have your therapy sessions, it's church, it's where you go to have your ablutions and to absolve your sins and to hear other people's bochinche, you know?
I tried to imbue her with a lot of physical comedy. I also think it's really funny to have, you know, me, this very tall person, next to DAPHNE-RUBIN-VEGA, who is petite, and as a unit, as a three-person unit of the Salon Ladies, myself, Dasha Polanco, and DAPHNE-RUBIN-VEGA, I think visually it's really interesting to the eye, and I think we played off of each other really, really well. I mean, I don't think I would have developed the character of Carla in the same way if I hadn't been playing opposite those two incredible comedians.
I'm playing a new character, and I'll be the first one to play it, and it's one of the salon girls. But just to see how relevant the story is then and now, and how important it is now. And hopefully people understand that when they see a movie like In the Heights, it's not about like seeing actors singing. It's more about a story that's important, that has been so relatable within our communities, and how it's necessary to have these stories be part of our entertainment, right? Stories that not just making a story, but cause an impact.
Shooting In the Heights, in the actual Heights, was very revelatory to us because the movie that is being portrayed in the script and by us really is the neighborhood in which we're shooting, with boom boxes, not on every corner, but several boom boxes on every corner, cars rolling around with their windows down and music coming out of them, the dirt bike motorcyclists, revving up, going down the street. Everybody's on the street at night, until the wee hours. It really feels like the statement that the movie makes in the middle, that the streets are alive with music, that we really felt that there. And there's no doubt that infects the performance and makes everybody kind of come alive in a very grounded and realistic and romantic way.
I think about when Lin Manuel would always pitch In the Heights to people, and one of the things that he would say is that I want the score to sound as if you were driving through Washington Heights and you would have your car window down and you would hear on every block a different style of music being played as you traveled through the neighborhood. And I think he accomplished that because the different styles that the score of In the Heights has, they all work together. They all feel like they're part of a family, and that's really a product of the genius of Lin Manuel Miranda as a composer. But the fact that it was all able to be woven together into a score and have it feel like it all works, like it blends and it's all harmonious. That was really a lot of fun because my tastes are very eclectic, and I like to be able to draw on these different styles. I like to be able to, just have a record played that sounds like a mixtape in a certain way, and that's what Lin Manuel achieved with the score of In the Heights. And you're right, at the time there was not a lot to compare it to, and Bill Sherman and I, we orchestrated the show together, and we really did a lot of research in our own way. I had grown up listening to salsa music, but I never had to notate it, so I had to learn terminology, I had to learn the best way to get stuff written down on paper, I had to learn a lot about grooves and styles and get really specific about it. And at that time, I think it was hard to find a show that featured hip hop, let alone hip hop with Latin influences. So it was perfect that the creator behind it, the genesis behind it, was this kid who grew up in Manhattan who just loved all these styles, and all this vocabulary was in his DNA. So out came the score that we all know and love, and that we're all grateful to have been a part of.
When I heard the music for the first time, it made me think about how special it was, how different it is. There wasn't anything else like this, and just how rich it was with story and people and life. It just had such a life to it. So it was immediately inspiring. And it's funny, one of our first meetings I had on the film was with the music department, and Alex was there, and Bill, and Lin wasn't even there. I think he was working on something. And they were like, and just let us know if you feel any kind of changes, if you want to add anything. And I was kind of like, it's pretty good the way it is, to be honest. It's pretty inspiring. And I think as a whole, everybody wanted to leave it, as kind of, original as we could. And I think we did a pretty good job. There's not that much change. A little bit here and there. Lyrically, things had to shift a little bit to make sense for the story. But it's pretty brilliant.
Instead of shooting on stage, we started looking at these locations in Washington Heights, real apartments. And when we found we were initially going, okay, well, let's not build the Rosario apartment, let's find it. And we started looking, but we're still gonna build Abuelas. And right there in our intersection, Samson's like, let me knock on their door and see if we can get inside. And we were able to get into this apartment, and immediately we all fell in love with it. And it was the least practical location to possibly shoot in. It was 13 or 14 feet wide, railroad apartment, 40 feet long, 2 windows, one on either end, one beautiful bay window in what became Abuela's bedroom, and one big window in the front, and that was it. But John said, this is Abuela's nest. This is the place where the community comes when they need to be nurtured. And so that, I think that finding that location shifted a lot for so many people.
That part of Carnaval where it gets really intense and kind of minor key, and they start singing about the flags, that is probably my favorite part of the score. I feel it really deeply and it rocks me every time. And I can't speak for anyone else, but when I hear that, I just think about history. I think about the fact that for decades, Spanish was banned in schools, in elementary schools in Puerto Rico. That for decades in Puerto Rico, having the Puerto Rican flag was banned. So the act of literally saying "Alza la bandera" is revolutionary. The act of literally saying, I get to say who I am, that wasn't my generation, but it was my mother's generation, and it was my abuela's generation. And so literally to say, I am Puerto Rican, still feels like a joyous, revolutionary act. That's why it rocks me still when I hear that lyric.
There's this interesting thing about In the Heights where it needs to feel incredibly grounded and incredibly musical at the same time. And so John and I spoke about that a lot. So how do we make this feel like a musical? And then also how do we make it fold right back into real life when the song is over? So you need to find a balance of someplace in between the two that it can live comfortably. And so I turned to pattern mixing a lot. It was something that I was inspired by just in my time in the Heights. And the more and more I got to know the neighborhood, I realized that there's some really interesting relationships that you can put together with patterns that may not blend beautifully until they're sort of styled in that way. And so for me, that became our foundation on this film, was to have as much texture and as much pattern as we could fit into the frame as possible. And for me, that became a tool to use to separate people when they weren't feeling as a part of the community, was to use solids and sort of pull them a bit towards the foreground in a way.
John had specific ideas about how to shape each of the numbers for the show, so they would each have their own characteristics, their own flavor. And those ideas, of course, changed over time as we found locations, as we shaped the elements. But we really wanted to take you in on a journey that didn't seem so fantastical at first. And then as you have become familiar with the things that are going on, that we could take you even further into it, so that you're on a ride. Sometimes when you watch a musical, the minute you see the first number, you know how the rest of the show is going, because everything is just variations on a theme. This one, the show is so known by fans that the music is known, but it was like, what can we do to add story to each of these that would not only support the song, but would actually enhance on repeat viewings, that you see elements of New York you've never seen. You would see families and relationships and just lots of other clues about life in each of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's no accident that the only new song in the movie takes place over the closing credits, because we wanted to fight for every song that we could in our screen adaptation, every song that made sense for telling the story of the screen adaptation. And what's really thrilling is that the songs presented themselves in a different order. Paciencia y Fe is in our movie, but it happens in a totally different moment in the film, and that revealed new aspects of Abuela Claudia, and that revealed new aspects of our journey. And so in adapting to the screen, we found ourselves surprised by the characters and when they chose to sing. But it was a joy figuring out how to adapt these songs. And as a songwriter, I have to tell you, there's nothing more gratifying than writing songs about a neighborhood you love so much, and then actually getting to stage them in the neighborhood you love so much. So to see When You're Home take place in J. Hood Wright Park, where my wife can see her grandmother's building, where her grandmother grew up, in the frame, to see the George Washington Bridge in When the Sun Goes Down, which I remember from one of my first dates with my wife and us walking around the neighborhood and sort of sharing this neighborhood we'd grown up in, but not together. So it's very emotional to see the music work in the neighborhood it's about.
It's very nerve-wracking to go to the creator of the show, the writer of the show, people who've lived with this for whatever, 15, 20 years, and pitch them a new version of their show. But they were so warm, so loving. I think we connected on a visceral level, on a truthful, honest level of what it feels like to be the son of an immigrant, of immigrant families, to be a part of that community. The things we talked about, family dinners, the expectations of your family members, the weight of going out into the world and representing a whole community, whether you want to or not. That really connected us. And so at the very base, before even ideas spewed out of my mouth, the idea that our hearts connected, that is sort of the driving force through everything. That was our North Star. So when it came down to actually getting the movie together, it just took a lot of conversation. I'm also not part of the Washington Heights community. I did not grow up there. I am Asian. So to listen a lot to what it means to be Latinx, what it means to be a man in that community, to be a woman in that community, to be young in that community, to be old in that. We just talked a lot. QUIARA was really a great resource to, I could ask any stupid question that I had. And I think that's an environment that Lin and QUIARA create, is an environment of safety and communication. So there was nothing out of bounds, and nothing that we couldn't question, kick the tires on, or be educated about.
It's such a beautiful story of dreams, aspirations, family, community, really knowing what matters to you in life, and sometimes even discovering that as you get older or as you go through life. Some people who are younger characters in the movie impart wisdom on people who are older, and then you have older generations like Abuela who are imparting their wisdom on the younger characters in the movie. Everyone's very much helping each other and trying to make each other's lives more interesting and better and help them achieve the dreams that they want to achieve. And because it's a musical and because people can sing emotions through their voices and through their hearts, it really elevates the whole emotional aspect of this story and the joy of this story. And it could not be a movie made at a better time than right now.
You get every joke because these are the jokes we cracked in our homes. You know, we get the food, we understand when we're talking about rice, beans, we singing about these things, and we're having dinners at Kevin's house, Kevin Rosario's, and I'm like, yeah, I've been a part of that dinner. I know what that dinner feels like. I know what all of those conversations feel like. I know these people. It's just amazing to be in a film that you feel like you know the people, and you like, I mean, I remember In the Heights was the first show I saw. You know, I considered like not doing this anymore because I was like, there are no roles for me. Nobody's gonna cast me as Billy Bigelow in Carousel. Ain't nobody trying to give me a lead role in Hollywood anytime soon. You know, and I was like, maybe this is not my lane. And I sat in the Heights, I'll never forget it, and I watched it, and I just had that moment where I was like, nah. Yeah, no, maybe there's a place for me here.
I respect dancers so much because they're the most disciplined. They put their bodies through so much every day, and they live in pain, and they're just like the hardest workers and the first to get there and the last to leave. And it's just a beautiful thing that I got to live with them for like 10 weeks that we were rehearsing, and then during the shoot, the days that we had those big numbers, and learn from them and like have them like cheer me on and believe in me and tell me that I was doing all right and that it looked good, because I felt like the most awkward human being on earth, like dancing next to these like masters of salsa in New York, and it was intimidating, but it was beautiful. John is amazing. He's so great to work with because he's fully invested in every single part of the movie. Like from the wardrobe to the songs. He was in the studio with us. He would go in and to the dance rehearsals, and then he would like sit down with us and talk about the journey of each character.
When you're starting off conceptualizing a number and really like breaking it down and like planning it out, mapping it out, to find that emotional connection to it, you really just, I don't know, for me, especially in this case, the music really drives that. I mean, it's written in it. It's screaming for it. The creators of this musical knew what they were doing, and they gave us all the pieces of the puzzle to just follow. So it really became, I think the movement always became secondary to that. It's not, and so you got to look at it from that way. You step back and you look at what you're doing, and you're like, I feel like we're just doing that move for no reason. Like there's no reason for that. We often revisit it and then like look at it and try something else. And then we're like, that makes me feel what the music makes me feel. That's like a connection there. We're connecting the movement and choreography to the music that's already in place. So I don't know, man, we just really let it drive us, and these actors and the stories that they were telling us.
Immigration, gentrification, these stories that we consider new and that haven't been told are actually real. It's what the norm is in our communities. It's not something that we don't see, and it's like it's not Narnia. You know what I mean? This is like, I grew up in a community like the Heights. So for me, it's more about seeing ourselves, our reflection. It's about being able to have these conversations, not only from a political standpoint and seeing it on the news, but also in a way that we can reach the masses.
I saw him play Usnavi in a production at the Kennedy Center, and it was actually directed by a Heights alum, Stephanie Clemens. And I wrote a long Twitter thread that you should just post here, because it was, I met him on Hamilton, obviously worked with him on Hamilton, but the way in which he inhabited Usnavi, it was like a tailor-fitted tux, that part for him. It is everything about Usnavi that we love is also what we love about Anthony. He's got an incredible heart. He represents his neighborhood and his city so beautifully, like it comes out of his pores. And he's so talented. He's such a gifted singer and rapper and actor. It was just like, oh, I didn't write this part. When I watched him, I said, I didn't write this part for me. I wrote it for him. I just didn't know it yet.
The presence of these blocks is so powerful. Our best decision we ever made was we're shooting this in Washington Heights, right in Lin and Kiara's backyard, in the places that he used to make movies as a kid, in the places that inspired these songs, and we're gonna take these songs and put them in the place that he basically remembers and wrote about, and that would build this sort of synergy between these two things that any Broadway audience could not have felt on a stage. And so the community, you could not have asked for a better community. The buildings, the fire escapes, the bridge, the GWB, there is a energy, an omnipresence of that place. And so when production started and you get everybody there, and the neighbors are out and they're peeking through the windows, and you see the community that you're trying to reflect on the screen in real life, and they're welcoming you with open arms, as if you were a family member. They'll yell at you like you're a family member as well. It was just that extra special sauce that forced everyone's game to go up 10 notches.
Colors, textures, things that we found, then you would just highlight and bring them together. But at the same time, you want to express that excitement. You want to express that sense of family. and depict people in a way that feels authentic, that people can recognize themselves in the furniture and in the drapes and in the flavors that you're putting on the table, without making it feel like you're stereotyping. There's all sorts of layers, of socioeconomic layers in the Heights, and there's all sorts of communities. So it was very important to keep the Dominican, the Cuban, and the Puerto Rican elements that people hold on to dearly, but there were also blends between those. So it was looking for those ways to showcase those and make them a part of the fabric of the movie.
My relationship with John is it's amazing for a process like this, because I would say the word that comes to my mind is trust. I think knowing that he trusts me to create and to put something in front of him, and then I trust every change he wants to make. Every time I create something, it's hard when you, as a choreographer, you get this song and you have this vision and you want to like create something to it, and then somebody's there telling you like, actually, it should be like this. And you're like, oh, and sometimes it's even hard to put their words into the bodies of other human beings anyways, because it's like you're telling me what you want, and I have a bunch of humans and I have to like manipulate them into it. It's like, it's so tricky. It's such a tricky process. But with John, I just trust that he knows what he wants and that he's gonna shoot it right. I think too, the balance that I have with John is great, because I'll create something and then I'll film it and I'll send it to him. But I'll film it in a way, every once in a while I'll put like my own little shot on it. And, but I know at the end of the day, John's gonna find his perspective on it and he's gonna shoot it right. When we were younger, he taught me very valuable lessons through film. So I was just about dance. And then he kind of educated me on what looks good through the lens. I think that was very important. So when your director is your mentor and one of your film teachers, it becomes an easy process.
One of the hardest things about casting our movie was they had to sing, dance, and act. You add on top of that we're not trying to do the Broadway flashy version of this musical. We wanted to tell the most honest, authentic story we could tell. This was an opportunity to swing at the fences, to not just have an amazing piece of entertainment that everyone will come to watch, to just have a smile on their face and to come out energized. But we wanted to reflect a story that was truthful.
I'm going on 20 years with In the Heights in my life, and we're finally hitting the big screen. And so Paciencia y Fe has been the guiding principle through all of this, first with my incredible creative team on Broadway, and I really give Tommy Kail a lot of the credit for the Paciencia y Fe, because I wanted to just have the show running, and Tommy's the one who really workshopped it with QUIARA and I until it was ready. Not when we feel like we want it, but when it's ready. And shepherded it to Broadway beautifully. And then the past few years with John M. Chu and seeing his passion for the project as a son of immigrants, and how it felt like a personal family project to him, watching him translate it to the screen so beautifully and perfectly.
It's my first movie. It's my first everything on screen. And just felt like this beautiful opportunity to do my best in something that I've never, and no one in my family, no one that I know has really done something like this at my age, that I know in my circle. And so to step into something like this was like the anxiety, but also the excitement of something new and learning every day about something that you don't know, but also feeling like I'm such a newbie, like I hope I'm doing this right. Oh, I know I'm not. Sometimes I'm doing stuff that I don't even know I'm doing wrong, and everyone's like, And so in a lot of ways, I feel like Nina feels like that when she goes to Stanford and comes back home, and she, sometimes I talk to my mom on the phone, and there aren't words to express like the feelings that I felt on set doing the first time, something new every day for the first time, every single day. And so it really helped me, like even that real life experience helped me connect to Nina in that way, and it's something that I won't be able to repeat again.
It focuses on several different families that live uptown New York in a in a specific community that's always been there, but that has gone through their changes and their daily lives and the trials and tribulations that they face, the joys that they face, the conflicts that they have with each other, and the changes that are happening in the community itself.
He's an amazing multitasker. You know, usually directors are just very focused on, he can do like 5 things at once, which is bizarre and amazing. Yes, he was very prepared. He had the rehearsals recorded, so he already knew the angles that he wanted to shoot. And then he's very aware of the person, the lead singer. So he's amazing how he blended the two together and was able to do that. And then he cuts it immediately. He has like a rough cut done, like before he gets home. He's amazing.
It's just so important for every community to feel seen and heard, because I think what ends up happening is that you accept, you begin to accept that it's not your place to be at the forefront of the story. And so you will buy a ticket to go see people that don't look like you because you want to be involved in the stories. And when those two things can meet, when not only are you going to go to the movies because you want to see spectacle and fun and joy and big budget numbers, but also just so happens that the people that are singing the songs and dancing the dances probably maybe kind of look like you. Like, that's different. That's amazing.
My greatest joy was the experience where people weren't sure if we were part of the film or if that was somebody who was just watching the filming from the sidewalk. And there was this incredible relationship to the community where it was a give and take all the time. Like, we would have people drop by with food just because, they were excited for us to be there. And we had great conversations with neighbors who told us about, what they've seen over the past 10 years there. I made friends with store owners who, had clothing boutiques up there, and I would run in frantically looking for whatever it was. And, days later I would have the lady that I met 2 days earlier when I was looking for something, and she's like, I got this for you, like, what do you think? And there's actually an amazing story about community and costume on this film. And it's one of our first days, a movie production rolls in, and there's a lot of buzz in the morning, massive trucks, and we can be a little bit disruptive. And I think a lot of us had an awareness to try to, create a small footprint. And I had a man come up to me, and he said to me, I understand that you might need shoes. And I said, tons. Like, we have 500 dancers, we have all of the principals. And I was like, yeah, of course. And so he said, I got you. And I came back like an hour later, and he had set up a table in front of our wardrobe truck with all different sneakers. And they were things I hadn't been seeing in stores. Like, I was truly excited because they were all there. So I just loved how bold his approach was, and I was like, I want them all. I'll take them all because, with as many bodies as we're dressing, I need it. And he was so happy. I was so happy. I felt like we made this great connection. I was feeling really good about it. I went to set and I came back, and when I came back, there was a table with a woman with necklaces, there was a woman with scarves, and so it had created this whole marketplace outside of the wardrobe truck. But it was this really cool give and take and an understanding between the movie and the community. It was a really amazing thing to see.
When we got to Washington Heights and started looking around, I realized, and I during prep I was watching all these great New York movies. I started looking at the light in Washington Heights and realized the light in Washington Heights doesn't look anything like the rest of New York. The buildings are lower, the color of the brick is a different color than the rest of Manhattan, and so when the sunlight hits it, it bounces a different kind of light off of everything. And when you think of hot summer, the initial thought is like this really warm, sort of tropical feel. But I started calling the warmth that we wanted, that John and I wanted, urban warmth. That it wasn't a tropical warmth. It didn't look like LA or Hawaii. It had this very specific sort of cool tones. Because it was bouncing off these the gray brick buildings.
I think that anyone watching the movie or seeing the show can say, okay, that's Washington Heights, I may not know it, but that's also my neighborhood. So it's very relatable. It's not only a story for people that live there or know Washington Heights.
That's my grandmother, that's my cousin.
We always say there are no small stories. You could tell the story of anyone you pass on the street, and they're living a truth that is complicated and devastating, and they're trying to figure things out as well, and joyful as well. And they have families, whether that's blood or not. And I love that this doesn't look down on people who work hard for their families or their community. Sometimes in movies, they look up to people who have it all. And look down on people who are actually working to get things done. And I think this movie puts on a pedestal the people who are working hard to get things done. This idea that the American dream is not a destination, it's not a gift that's given to you. He even says that in the movie. That the American dream is a promise to work your butt off for your community, for yourself, to fulfill dreams that don't exist already. And you work every day, it's a privilege every day to fight in that struggle. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. That's the way I grew up, and I think that that's what the world needs now.
Yeah, well, Lin and QUIARA have a thing where her off-the-cuff, like, wit and quickness and Lin, I mean, they changed the game. You know, I don't know how else to put it, but they changed the game.
As much as we may seem dysfunctional to others, we're really not. We know exactly how to coexist and how to support one another when it's necessary. So I think that Daniela, CARLA, Cuca, they're the epicenter of where everybody, they're the psychotherapist of the community.
Having Lin there has made me more comfortable, as opposed to like feeling weird or anything. It's like, you know, it's kind of like you get the blessing, right? You get knighted. He's like been like, oh yeah, no, here, this is yours now, and turn this guy into whoever you want him to be. You know, like I did it already, and I did it the way I did it, and now it's yours. So. I feel good. I feel great actually having Lin around, and I'm so grateful that he is around, and we get to work together, and we're doing pre-records, and he's there, and like we're doing read-throughs, and Lin's there, and like, you know what I'm saying, and then we can talk about it after. So I feel great. I'm really grateful.
Well, it's funny. I felt enormous responsibility, not only as someone who has written about the neighborhood, but a resident of the neighborhood. I didn't, you know, this movie can't be bad because I live here. I'm gonna hear it from my neighbors for the rest of my life, what people think of this. And so I remember going to those open calls. QUIARA and I went to the open neighborhood casting calls to basically be like, please be a part of this because this is gonna be really special. We really wanted to enter the neighborhood as fellow residents, not as this giant movie imposing on the neighborhood. We were embraced beautifully by the neighborhood. One of the things I said early and often to people passing by, I said, I know we're messing up your parking, but your block is gonna live forever. If we do this right, this neighborhood's gonna live forever in this way. And so, you know, I mean, I could tell you so many stories of neighbors bringing out food to the crew, and you know, residents who just sort of showed up day after day and ended up in the movie by virtue of their love for what was happening on their streets. And I really wanted to feel like the neighborhood's movie because I'm a resident of that neighborhood too, and I'm so proud of it.
I was so in my head about getting the steps right and the choreography right that I wasn't even thinking about the character or how Vanessa would dance. Or for me, it was just like, Melissa, you look terrible. You're going to ruin this number. They're gonna have to like put in a body, dance double. And I didn't want that. So I was just like panicking about that, and I didn't get a chance to like create the character, I don't think. Even like in the pre-records, I went in and I sang. I was like, I hope I can like make a cool version of the song, but I wasn't thinking of Vanessa and her journey. And it wasn't until I was on set and in the world, on location in Washington Heights, with everyone around me and like feeling like Carnaval del Barrio and like the opening and all the people there, that I started like discovering her and who she is. And it helped me a lot for when I just went back in January to go over some of the songs now with picture to match the emotion, because I wasn't really thinking of the emotion when I did the pre-records. I was just like, I want to sing, I want it to sound good. But it's so much more about the feeling of it. And when we were in the scenes and shooting it, I was like, I just have to be in the moment.
Well, I think that John, as a director, first of all, has been so welcoming. And he really, for me, made me feel very involved in the creative process. I remember the first meeting we had, I was like, oh my God, am I gonna be let go of the movie or what's going on? But he actually brought me in, showed me what his plan was, the colors. We want it to be very vivid, we want it to be authentic. We want you guys to not only sing a number, we want it to be, yes, the classic number, but we want it to be full of life.
I think it was brilliant for John and Lin Manuel and QUIARA to decide to use the community, the actual In the Heights community, and also little, can I say, little cameos from Broadway cast, which I'm so happy about. Because people are going to see themselves represented in a real way, not by like actors, but these are the real people. So when they go to the movies, they're going to see themselves.
John and I have known each other for 20 years. I met him because he asked me to shoot his musical in college. We both went to USC Film School. And it was almost 20 years ago. It was in 2002 we shot, it was a musical called When the Kids Are Away. And we had 30 dancers in the street doing this big musical number. And there was a big dinner scene, it was a breakfast scene, but very similar to the dinner scene in the Rosario apartment. And it's amazing because some things have stayed exactly the same since we first met and first started working together. And then some things have changed. We went from 30 dancers in the street to 300 dancers in the street. And I think it's been amazing because, we did our first musical together, and then we've done a whole lot of dance and musical driven things over the course of the last 19 years, including a series called The Legion of Extraordinary Dancers, and that's where I started working with Chris Scott. And so Chris Scott, the choreographer, and John and I would say as we were making In the Heights, we've been training for this moment for a really long time.
That was probably the most difficult one as just purely dance goes. Water is just a hard element. In the pool, I have a new respect for synchronized swimmers because we didn't want to use them for this. We wanted it to feel different. But when you watch, Busby Berkeley's classic, routine in the water, they're synchronized swimmers, and it's incredible. So you come in, you want to pay homage, so you want to be in that world, and you're like, oh, we don't know how to do that. So then you start finding your own version of movement in water, and that was probably the most challenging part. We spent a lot of time in the pool. They rented us a little, like somebody's apartment, like downstairs, and there was like a tiny little pool. And just the difference between 2 feet of water versus a foot of water and then 3 feet of water, I mean, it was night and day. So it was a lot of experimenting with people that had no idea what they were really doing. But I think we ended up finding something really, really fun and familiar, but with a fresh feel. Hope Busby would be proud.
We're doing a film that we're just walking down the street and all of a sudden you bust into song. How do you make that, how do you ground that? How do you get these characters to a point where, and we spoke about this for the 3 months of prep work that we had to do with the script and tinkering, and he was so open and collaborative with Lin and QUIARA and really trying to figure out how to make it grounded. How do you get to the point where these characters can't do anything else but sing? It's that thing you can't do anything else but scream or yell. That's the interesting moment. Those are the things you want to capture on film. And John just like finds a way to get us there.
That is major. And one of the things I talked with Lin about early on is I was like, we need to let the audience know that we're taking care of what they love, and it will look different, but it's still that same heart. We're taking care of it. And so, you know, I used that deep burgundy polo on Usnavi in the club almost as a nod to the Broadway production, because we get so used to seeing Usnavi in a similar color. And of course, the cap that's Usnavi. And if we didn't do that, I don't think that we're taking care of the same person. So for me, it's a nod of sort of like the passing of the torch between these two manifestations of the same work. But, you know, we want you to know that we got you. We're going to take care of you. We love it too. It is a huge part of what we have to do on this project, which is to reflect, not portray. And I think that's the major difference, was about seeing what's real, seeing what has been used to push narratives in past projects that have no place in our project. So again, it's just about reflection. It's about showing what's real. Sometimes the clothes are too tight, and that is truth. And it's not about commentary. It's not about judgment. It is about accuracy.
When you're orchestrating for Broadway, you tend to write for the circumstances that theater provides, whether it is a certain number of musicians that you have in your head that you want to have execute the score, people that you hire that will be at that show 8 times a week. You know, there's certain confines, if you will. There's certain kind of practicality about how to make that happen. And what I love about the movie process is that, in a way, all those boundaries are kind of blown apart, because what you're really after is like, what is the best possible way to make this song sound the way that it sounds in our fantasy version in our heads. So I love that there's that kind of freedom to be able to work with top-notch producers, to be able to work with top-notch creators who excel at what they do. Because while Bill Sherman and I orchestrated In the Heights, like, we're not especially Latin music creators. So here we have an opportunity to find somebody who really excels in creating Latin music to be able to help beef out our arrangements. Same thing with the hip hop world. Like, Bill and I have experience dabbling in it, but we don't create like record-breaking, award-winning hip hop tracks. So we get to call Mike Elizondo to be able to have his stamp on the music. So these are just, it feels like that's a kind of playing field that we didn't really have available to us back in 2008. And knowing that we have that ability, knowing that we can just make a phone call and ask somebody to come play in the sandbox with us is really great, because the music will then get a polish and a beefing up, as you say, a certain kind of electric charge that I think now we have accessible to us that we didn't before. So I'm thrilled about that opportunity.
Boot camp was learning the songs and learning them together and learning how they're going to fit in your voice and how they are going to be in the context of this film in particular. So, you know, let's not roll off a log and come in here, you know, half-assing anything. Let's, you know, so music boot camp is where we met each other and started to just roll up our sleeves and start singing. That was awesome. And then it was rehearsal boot camp for the dance and getting our bodies in shape, and that was very humbling and wonderful. And moving beyond words to see all the different bodies and faces and spirits in a room that had an amazing gift of their bodies to dance with, the instrument of their bodies. To be in a room full of hundreds of people that did that was really amazing. And so it was a wonderful honeymoon, and then, you know, we got to shooting. I mean, wonderful honeymoon and grueling boot camp, like, okay, but we're ready.
Sonny's really outgoing and spontaneous and all that, and like he's always just trying to show off, where Sonny's like, I mean, Usnavi's just like, in a way, like kind of to himself at some times, but he can also be like a ladies' man and stuff like that. So they have that in common, where like they could be cool and suave and stuff like that. But their differences is probably like the fact that Usnavi's all about like working and stuff like that. And like, sure, Sonny will work, but like he likes to have like fun, and like he'll have fun, but he plays hard, but he works hard too.
I think the joy I feel watching the movie, I want everyone to feel that joy. And I think, so that to me is paciencia y fe, that patience, that faith, that it's all gonna work out, that the movie's coming out at the exact right time for this, for the world. That this movie's coming out at the exact right time that the world needs it the most. It's a special movie, and when I was making it, I knew it was a special movie, but I didn't know what that meant. And the closer we get to the release and the more times I watch the movie, the more I realize that it really is a gift.
There's just something about In the Heights that just, there's that extra little bit of heart, man, that just comes with that piece, you know, that you can't, it's like, it's something that is included in the package. It's not like, oh, here's a script, here's some songs, like, here's a script, here's some songs, and here's the heart that comes with that, take care of that heart. And it was like everybody came to work conscious of that heart and conscious of taking care of that heart and doing what we needed to do to continue to make that thing beat as much, beat as well as it possibly could, you know, and everybody was just on one accord, man. Like, it's just, it takes a village to make anything worthwhile in life and to make moments, special moments at that, and this village did nothing short of that, man, you know. It takes a village, and you know, Corey, Leslie, Melissa, myself, the rest of the cast, you know, Noah, Daphne, you know, Dasha, Stephanie, Jimmy, Greg, like it's way more than just four of us, man. It's like, you know, the dancer is just incredible, like, just it was everyone coming together to contribute to the heartbeat.
We're always looking for urgent reasons to bring people to movie theaters. And this is a theatrical movie for the very specific reason that it is a large-scale, shared experience that feels like it's the right time, it's the right moment for it, both in terms of where the world is at right now, in terms of what people are thinking, what people are learning about themselves, what they're learning about other people. It feels like the movie dovetails all of its themes, all of its characters, the songs into those notions in an incredibly entertaining way. And that's the reason to go to the movies.
Yeah, I also think it was fate that it's happening now, because if we did this movie several years ago, it would have been a different movie and had a different meaning to everybody than it does today. And so it's important that it's being done today, I think.
You're so right, and but it's also fun because I also produce Broadway, and when you're working in the theater, you've got, you know, 60 feet of stage space and 1,000 seats in the audience, and you have a very different set of material to work with. We're now taking these songs and these production numbers, and if you see what John Chu and this creative team is doing, I mean, we've got crazy Busby Berkeley, Esther Williams shots with 1,000 people in the pool dancing, big giant crane shots, and those are the kind of things that make you say, I need to go to a movie theater to see this kind of a film.
This is a full family movie. This is a movie that my kids couldn't stop coming to set to watch the songs. You know, my kids were born way after I wrote In the Heights. So to them, In the Heights is this new thing. They grew up in Hamilton, but In the Heights is this new thing. And I really think this is one of those movies where you bring Abuela, you bring your kids, you bring a date. There's beautiful love stories in this, but there's also, it's one of the things that we noticed when we were running on Broadway was, you know, people would tell me at the stage door, I came with a date, but I have to come back with my mom. Or I came with, my parents dragged me, but I have to bring my best friend because we're just like Daniela and Carla. And I feel like everyone sees someone on that screen that relates back to their life. And so I feel like this is gonna be a big group outing.
I've known QUIARA for such a long time. I did the first play that she ever did professionally, I was in. And Lin and I have known each other forever. And so to me, they're not these, I mean, yes, there are icons, and yes, there are these epic artists, but they're people first and foremost. And the thing that to me is so cool about both of them is that they are really good people that want to tell really good stories. And they throw themselves at projects with their whole heart. Once the music started and once the camera started rolling, it was just fun. It was just really, really fun and joyful. And, you know, not for nothing, I'm like singing and dancing alongside literally one of my musical theater idols, DAPHNE-RUBIN-VEGA. I mean, I had her cover of Newsweek on the door of my bedroom from the time I was like 17. I took pictures of her with me to college, and like, here I am, like singing and dancing next to her.
Most people don't know Upper Manhattan. You know, the tourists all go from the Battery to Central Park. You know, the irony in the opening lyric, most people haven't been north of 96th Street, you know, so we wanted to have that opportunity in a way that on Broadway they talk about it and try to give you the feeling of what it might be, but we could go there. So we chose our locations very carefully to expand the Heights, to give us, you know, the feeling of family in the song when Nina and Benny are singing Home in the park. We took J. Hood Wright Park, and on Broadway that song was about, oh, this place, and remember here, and all this, to help an audience know what's in Washington Heights. But in the movie, we're seeing the Heights.
Kevin Rosario is Nina's father. Owner of Rosario's car service in that neighborhood in the Heights there. Businessman with aspirations for his family. Very important that he conveys that image of, you know, what success, American success could be.
The story that Usnavi is telling to these children is as a story that has a responsibility of passing on traditions and ideas that were given to him. But at the same time, what are the new things he wants to add to that story that will protect his children or these children for the next generation? And I just think that was so personal to me, this idea that he always thought his best days were behind him. But by seeing these children, he knows his best days are ahead of him. I think that is what the world needs now more than ever, that this next generation are gonna be the ones that save us. And that the story that we tell them, the stories that we show them, the rules that we give them about how the world works, influences more than anything we ever build in this lifetime. That those stories never die. And so how he frames the American dream, how he frames the American story, how he frames this community as a part of that tapestry, I just think is everything that I'm going through in my own life. And so in a weird way, this is like the most personal story I've ever told. And I love that about this one. I feel very close to it.
This is the first time I see a movie that does express all of these life stories that have always existed, but for the first time are expressed through this brilliant masterpiece of music. and colors and joy and making the best of what we got, and through these people that you know what I mean? Like, we haven't all lived in the Heights or grown up in the Heights, but the messages through these characters are all so universal that there's no way that you can't relate to the people telling this story.
You really have to set the tone and have it look realistic and naturalistic. So for me, In the Heights had only existed in my head as this theatrical construct where you just get a suggestion of what something needs to be. So being able to be on set and see clips of this finished product where the set is a real tangible thing that is 360 versus just, you know, the one angle that you see is so mind-blowing to me. I remember being in walking onto the set for the club number, and to be in an actual club and to see so many extras dressed to the nines, really dancing it out, seeing a band on stage performing as we do it. You know, I saw that and I got super emotional. I got teary-eyed because it never in my mind occurred to me that it could actually look like that. So, you know, they're just different mediums, right? It's just the way you adapt to telling a story in a certain kind of framework. And I love seeing how real the stuff looks. I love walking out to the set bodega and being like, my God, this looks like a bodega. I love walking into the salon and being like, yep, this is what a salon would look like in the Heights. There's just something about it that feels authentic, even though it's completely manufactured. It's a very amazing paradox, but it's movie magic. It's, you know, I think people who will be watching the movie will be able to relate in a certain way, particularly the people from the neighborhood that we're representing. I think they're going to feel an immense sense of pride to have their home glorified in this way, for people to be able to peer into it in a way that they might not have before.
Early on, John and I would sit and watch the videos that would come back from choreography, and I was so inspired by seeing the different body types that we have. I was so inspired by the movements just in their rehearsal clothing, and it's something that John and I talked about so much, is like, we've never seen this before. Every other time that you've seen a musical, it's been, you know, a typical athletic person in usually period clothing with costumes that have been made to move with that movement. And so I was like, we have such a good foundation here, watching, you know, track pants and tank tops or flowy, oversized things that girls will put on top of a sports bra. And it's just about the movement that I was watching get caught up in all of that rehearsal footage, where I felt like it was just there for me. It was just about controlling the color and the shapes for the film, but recognizing the beauty of, you know, a cropped, oversized hoodie on a girl, watching that spin and move in the same way that I grew up watching skirts do in movie musicals of my childhood. And I was like, we can do the same thing. We can just use a different set of tools completely. And so it just became about finding things that allowed them to split, kick. You know, thank God a gladiator sandal stays on a dancer's foot as well as it does, because it is so everywhere you go in the Heights, there's a gladiator sandal, and the dancers love it. It keeps them protected and cool. And there were just these little things that we would learn about each other as we did all the fittings that started to make sense. And it's a lot of work. You know, I think a lot of times the costume designer gets undue credit because they are the head of a department, but there's an incredible amount of people who have worked on this film in the costume department and have helped me take this vision to camera, which involves hundreds of dancers, thousands of background, something like 300 principal costume changes. So there were a lot of assistant designers, shoppers, tailors, fitters, you name it, we have it.
It's interesting in that way to kind of track Benny's like progression through that, but I just feel like he's a go-getter, you know? He's somebody who just doesn't let up, but he's also fun, and he sort of brings his charm and his sort of wittiness. He's smart, and him and Nina together are just sort of this unstoppable duo. Like they just complement each other so well, which is the thing that makes it so heartbreaking when they have to go separate ways again. They parted for the first year, and she comes back and surprises him, and he's like, oh, you know what I mean? He sort of throw that confidence that you see, that swagger. I think sometimes Benny sort of puts on a little bit. You know, it's a little bit of an air, but anytime he's around Nina, anytime she comes around, it's like it all just sort of melts away, and he's those little kids again, you know, running around through the park or in the Heights, and just reminding each other that what love is.
Yeah, I feel like we're like, you know, the Pinkertons of the barrio. You know, nobody messes with anybody in the barrio if you've got these women on your side. So, yeah, and I think that it was also important for us to not lean on any kind of stereotype, to like let these characters, Daniela, come out of, you know, the soul, as it were, organically. You know, I've seen Daniela on stage, and she's a powerhouse. She was incredibly inspiring to see Andrea Burns embody this fiery Chango kind of creature, you know? So I wanted to do her a good solid and make her seem like someone that Daphne would want to be like, you know? But yeah, I think that those salon women they're security, you know, like literally and figuratively.
There's such a wonderful, assured leadership quality that John has, that if he pops in and gives you a note, you know that that's incredibly important to him, and it better, you know, that better happen, because he allows us a lot of freedom. He's one of the most generous collaborators I've ever worked with, and is able to get you, you know, exactly where he wants you to go, and then you're able to take him on. So he takes all ideas and just builds and builds in a way that each of us, the department heads, we talk about this all the time, that you feel so safe presenting an idea. You feel so safe doing your work because you know it will be seen. You know that he will find a way to amplify that and take it to yet even another level. And it's his empathy for people.
It was mad fun, you know? Like, I knew it was gonna be fun from the beginning. John Chu has this really great way of showing you, he uses these basically like animatics and will show you his storyboards, like almost like a slideshow of his storyboard of like, this is what this song is gonna look like. And so going into the rehearsals, I knew what things are gonna, I already knew, I had the images in my mind of, oh, this is that big wide shot that he's gonna use. Oh, this is the three of us walking across the salon. And then you add in all of the rehearsal of the dancing and stuff. And so you know you have a game plan. And so then getting onto set, getting into, you know, for example, 96,000, getting onto that, the Highbridge Pool center area, and like seeing all of that was, I mean, it really, this is a weird thing to say, but it wasn't a big jump from my imagination. I was like, oh yeah, this is what it looks like. That's right. That's correct. And these are the stands where we're dancing, and then that's the pool, and here's the corner, and here's the float that I suggested that we have, you know, like, it wasn't, it just was fun. Then it was just fun because then you've been rehearsing a song for weeks and you know it inside out. And yes, it's raining and you're at a pool and you're supposed to pretend it's hot, and you have like 4 takes before the sky opens up and just like drowns everyone, and you do it because you're ready to do it.
I was dragged kicking and screaming into this movie. And I think a part of it was, honestly, my own nervousness. It was, you know, I worked very hard to create the best stage production of this show. John is gonna do an amazing job creating this movie, and like, he should get to own that, and I don't need to be in it, and I can just sort of give my blessing and be on the sidelines and cheer everyone on. And as we got through pre-production and I saw how special this thing was and what was emerging in these rehearsals, and you know, John being like, you have to do Piragua Guy, you have to do Piragua Guy. I mean, it's really to John's credit that I played Piragua Guy, to the point where I saw what he was creating and I wanted to be a part of it. I think at one point QUIARA said to me, if you didn't write this, you'd be begging to be in this movie, so what are you doing? And she was right, you know, it was so special. And you know, in my heart, I think of the incredible Eliseo Román, who originated the role of Piragüero on Broadway, and contributed vocals to this movie as well. While I was playing Piragüero, I really was channeling my grandfather. I'm holding his old vaquero novel. I've got his glasses with the string around my neck. I really just, I'm playing my grandpa. I'm playing my abuelo, who he passed away the week after we opened off Broadway. And so it's always been tied up. The show's always been tied up with him for me.
He and John Chu, actually, they remind me of each other, you know, the way they just create and put it out there, and they work hard, and he's, I love him to pieces. He's all heart, and that's one thing that I love about his projects, that he puts his heart and soul into them, and he's amazing. I'm so proud of him.
And I think that we see that in the number when everyone is busy doing their thing, and you see the ladies, the what do you call it? The customers. I was gonna call them dancers, but then they're not really dancers in the movie. They're customers. The language, the relationships that are depicted also, and we also see how, once again, we have Nina coming in back home, and that's the beauty of this number, that this is the center, this is your family, this is where you turn to when you need to feel grounded once again. I think the energy in this whole scene, and the song, the women, it shows, it's like, for me, how I envisioned it while I'm doing it, it's an assembly line, right? Of like our personalities, of our souls, of our experience, and there's so much to be told from there that I told QUIARA, we need to do a spin-off.
He's helped a large amount to show that we can be successful, and that we're not just those stereotypes, and that we do have lives beyond those stereotypes that people think of us. And I think now with the film and how he's done other films like Mary Poppins and stuff like that, he's starting to get known more on the movie side of things. And I think with this film, which is gonna be huge, with the story alone showing how we're different from those stereotypes, Lin, who is a bit of a household name, is a household name, coming in with the film, and this being his story, and so similar to his story in growing up in the Heights. I think that's a really big part of it all.
We were looking for people of all ages, of all colors, all shapes, all sizes, big hearts, people that were emotionally available to give, and share. People that were not scared to speak up in a moment, to do it right. People that listened to the music and it spoke to them. People that could communicate back in music, in movement. These were all very important aspects of casting.
I don't really have a lot of heavy lifting to do in terms of the musical choreography part, but there is stuff there. So it was great that when it did happen, that John and Lin said, yeah, come play with us, that they called and, well, we're gonna have to do a little boot camp here, and come a couple of months in advance. And I mean, I think I went to all the top vocal coaches in both New York and LA to kind of make sure that my 17 phrases were like on point. And then doing the choreography stuff, those kids, I don't do much, but they put me through it when we were doing the boot camp.
I think he feels a special responsibility with taking on every project that he does. And I think what he does as a director, he takes very personally. I think he feels his purpose is attached to that, and he addresses every decision and every conversation with us as actors as just that, as a personal responsibility to make the best piece of art and tell the best story in its most truthful way as possible. And for a first-time actress like me, that made me feel really welcome because he was also very collaborative. He had a very clear vision, but he was always listening, you know? He was always listening to us, and he was always asking us, do you feel like this is right? Let's try this a couple times, and I'm gonna give you room to find it. Like, all of those things made me feel really at home, no pun intended. And I think that it shows, when you watch our movie, it really shows that every person I can get emotional even now talking about it, you really feel the care and the time and the effort and all of those rehearsals and all of that collective effort to make something that truly is felt. You feel it all the way through the movie.
Carnival was one of the biggest moments for me in this film. I think that was when everything really hit, like what we're doing here. You know, it's just it's that moment of empowerment that I think we're all finding. And when we talk about pace, like that's what we're pacing ourselves up to, was this moment of the community being represented and having this voice and being loud for the world to hear them. I mean, just the beginning of it, when Daphne's up there and she's like, you know, and she's like going off. I almost sang. I stopped myself because I was like, I'm not a singer. And as it went, there was a lot of magical moments in creating that piece. Because, you know, even beyond the choreography team, we had different dancers from different cultures and different styles, and we just hired them. We didn't know what those moments were gonna be. And then the bomba dancers just start doing something. You're like, yeah, that's beautiful and it's authentic. And then the Colombian guys come through and you're like, oh my God, and everybody loses it because a lot of people have never seen it before. And it's funny because to them, they're like, what? This is like what we do. So it's a very gratifying moment when you just put a bunch of people in one room and you just let them do what they do.
I'm so grateful to have been able to follow him, you know. He could have told me pretty much to do anything and I probably would have done it, because he's just that full of love and that full of brilliance, and you just like, and humility, you know, like, and he, you know, cool, calm, and collected. My man's the set was full of love because it started at the top. He brought it every day. He's like handing out bags of love. Here you go, everybody. Make sure you don't just throw the bag out. Like, go inside, get your dose, and let's get it today.
John is a real filmmaker. He understands every aspect of image and sound. He's the most effective planner that I've ever worked with. He takes shot lists, he turns them into storyboards. He shoots the storyboards as little mini videos. He then brings them to the rehearsals. He gets the dance rehearsals to replicate what he's designed, and then starts subbing in the rehearsal footage for the storyboard footage, so that by the time we started shooting, we had pre-visualizations of every single dance sequence. And he understood from the very beginning what was needed in order to make each one of these numbers and also the non-dancing numbers work. That much said, there are two aspects of John that make him the perfect director for this. One is his boundless enthusiasm, where you can see him constantly get excited about what a shot can do, how a line can be squeezed out to read more, and how he can make the most out of every single moment in the movie. And then two is he's full of love.
It was a surprise to see it edited, and also like the shots that they pick, because they're not on the dance all the time, because there's a lot of things going on in that number, and there's reactions, and there's a lot of people, and 4 of the characters are in there, and so you just have to like follow them. So I think, yeah, I think it looks good. I'm just kind of sad that you can't tell that it's me a lot of the time because it's so fast and my hair is flying. So I was like, I did that. But like people might think that it wasn't me because you can't see me. You know how like when they use body doubles, they always like fake and like, or like do that or like, and so it looks like that a lot of the time. And I'm like, damn, because it was me. That's me. That was me all the time.
Every single one of our crew members felt that specialness being there. They were put into the community, and making a movie is a huge team effort, and when it works, it's magnificent. And all of us being there together, working so hard through the heat and the long days and the environment and not having shade to go rest in, I think that helped everyone get on the same page of what movie we were making. It's one of the few times in my life I've made a movie where every single person, every single crew member was making the same movie.
I hope people take away from In the Heights the importance of humanity and really seeing people for their value the way God made them. Whatever shape that is, whatever color that is, whatever accent that is, that there's beauty everywhere, and there are wonderful friends and family to be had, to know, to explore, that the time we have with each other is limited. And we so often block ourselves off from people who could be the dearest, most wonderful things in our lives. And this movie is about a celebration of family and relationships and love, and recognizing, or not recognizing until after the fact, the joy and things that you had right here, right where you are. A celebration of every day. I hope people find that joy and excitement.
Writing for theater is not the same as writing for TV and film. They're completely different mediums. And just by practical sense, you know, you're not going to take a two and a half hour show and assume that you're just going to take that same script and make it work for film. So I applaud Lin Manuel and QUIARA for wanting to start from scratch, in a sense, and being able to take apart their story and rework it and adapt it in such a way that it's current for today, in a way that feels like it, yes, can pay homage and have its roots in what we created 10 years ago, but something that feels like it deals with issues for today. So, you know, that's a hard thing to reopen something that you've created and be like, okay, there's room for change. There's a chance to readapt. Not everybody is brave enough to do that, but I love that they're willing to write new lyrics if they need to. They're willing to rewrite scenes completely. They're ready to cut a character if it needs to, if need be, to make the final product better. So I also think about the fact that, and QUIARA said something really beautiful to me just recently. She's like, you know, I'm a better writer now than I was 10 years ago. So for her to bring her new sense of self and new awareness and knowledge into her writing, to be able to be given that chance to reopen and re-examine, that's very special. Not everybody gets that opportunity. So here we are, you know, more than 10 years later after working on this piece. You know, I'm constantly amazed that I look around the room and I see so many people working on this project, and people who I've never met, people who are dedicating their time and their energy and their efforts to creating this. And I think back to just the 5 of us, like sitting around in my living room by a piano, just trying to figure out how the ending of the show went, you know?
There are so many amazing Broadway actors that have created roles that have never gotten to do their parts in the movies. That's usually the norm. So this is a miracle that this happened, and I'm beyond grateful. And I felt, like I told you, I felt a responsibility. But for me to have this complete journey from the workshops that I did to off-Broadway to Broadway to the movie, it's like, what a gift.
Much like the joys of the theater, you're going to want to experience this in a communal setting. It's a family-friendly, beautiful film that you want to experience with a lot of people around you.
Right, but just as cinematic as the musical pieces are, the emotional pieces are quite strong and very touching, and he's hit on all the emotions, so I think it is actually a communal experience.
No Me Diga was a salon beyond your dreams with moving heads and women who dance with every sort of like, with their nails. The characters, the women, just the energy, like the female energy. I have to be honest, we were shooting, and in the true context, it wasn't all females in the room. But, you know, there was a lot of, you know, the testosterone was challenged. And it was good. It was really good. No, it was, No Me Diga was, you know, I'm just busy trying to get it right. You know, I'm just busy trying to, you know, please everyone and, you know, do this at the right time and hit my mark and make sure that it looks like I'm really singing. I mean, those are like the nitty-gritty, but to get to say the words that come out of my mouth during that scene is really cool.
If you have swag and you know how to act, literally, well, things don't look so overboard. I mean, I wear long nails since I was 14. Like, I used to be acrylics. Now, obviously, I've stepped up a little and I'm having these appraised nails from Japan or California, one of those places with Swarovski on them, you know. But I think that color, bringing personalities forth in a movie like this, for me, it was important not to be like, she's not tacky. You know, come on, like, just because they portrayed us on TV for years to just wear leopard and red lipstick doesn't mean that we all do that. There's ways that we can do it in a way that is, again, true to the character. So for me, I'm gonna let go of these nails today because I need to shoot something else, but I would keep them for a little bit longer. But I also don't want to play them out because these are kukas. We gotta respect kuka.
Anthony and I, every time I see him, it's like, for the culture, we're doing it. Because they, you know, there's an acknowledgement that there's a kind of importance for us all to be doing it. And yes, it feels like a real blessing. So there is a lot of joy because of that.
In the Heights is about the question of how do I honor those people who I love, who got me to where I am, and also honor my own path and my own adventure. Can I do both of those things? And if I can, how? And if I can't, which do I choose? And every character has a different answer in this story.
When we had this intersection blocked off one day, it was actually the finale. Lin and I are standing in the middle of the street and no one else is really around. And I look at him and I said, did you ever imagine that you'd be standing here in your neighborhood closing down streets when you were 18 years old and wrote this song? And he said, no, I didn't. And then I started thinking about the same thing when I was in college and doing John's musical and we shut down the street. Did I ever dream that almost 20 years later I'd be in Washington Heights doing this amazing musical written by Lin? I never would have dreamed that was about to happen, you know, that was about to happen 20 years later. So I think his, I think his awareness is one of his magical. I I think one of Lin's magical powers is his awareness.
I mean, I never been through an experience like that in my life. Ever. With all the performance training that I've done throughout the years, even just as a music artist, I had never been through such an intense boot camp, and I really did fully learn new parts of myself. I'm so grateful to our team. Our choreography team had us do things that I don't think nor Aunt, Corey, I, or Melissa, or Dasha, or Daphne, Steph, none of us thought that we could do at the beginning of that journey. It also was very instrumental to us. I think it was essential to our bonding. That boot camp period, that pre-production time, we had basically 2 months of training. We're sweating on each other. We're like, dang, like, I ate too much lunch, something's going on right now, but we're doing like 8 spins for this number. Like we're going through things, we're feeling frustrated, you know, sometimes, a lot of days. I mean, there are really hard numbers. A lot of days we had to count on each other to be like, nah, you could do this, it's okay. I'm frustrated with some other stuff over here too that I'm doing for this number, and we gonna get through it. We got 10 more weeks. So it was instrumental for us feeling like a family, and by the time we were shooting, I mean, that's what we really were.
We had a really amazing opportunity in which we got to show nightlife. We got to show a community pool. We got to show the park. We got to show the sidewalks. We got to show the morning commute. So we were really given a chance to show what that looks like at different times of day, for different occasions. We did like 2 musical numbers a week, essentially, in this shoot. And so I think what it allowed us to was specify those numbers and give them a color palette, shapes that made sense for that. So it felt like working on a different musical number in the same way that movie musicals have passed, or like, you know, a tight color palette, or a period where you can identify everybody's costumes. So my approach was always to treat this film the same way, where once you're in a number, it feels brand new and fresh, and then as you let go of it, we allow room for the next number to come in and feel completely separate.
Carla doesn't speak a whole ton in the movie, but she speaks through her clothing and her hair and her nails, and it's an extension of her creativity and personality. And I think it was really the final fittings when I saw what we were going to fully do, and also my input into the hair and makeup, and the hair and makeup department was so supportive of the chances that I wanted to take. There was a day where we were about to shoot No Mediga, and I was like, I think it's a lot of hair. And Valerie, who does my hair on the film, she was like, well, how much hair do you think? I was like, I think it's all the packs of hair that you can possibly find on this trailer. What do you have? And it was like 3 packs of hair. There was someone else took the hair out that night and was like, oh my gosh, it just keeps coming out. You know, it was like, I think it was really collaborative, kind of creating this character in that way, in the visual way.
The element that's really gonna connect with this audience for this musical movie, through the dance at least, it's really that there is, I feel like, even though it's like Washington Heights representing the Latin community, I feel like it's so human, and you know, everybody is gonna be able to connect to this movie, even though there's moments that are like larger than life and people are dancing on the side of a building. At the end of the day, it's a human feeling. It's you know, it reminds us of how similar we all really are. At the end of the day, we all just wanna love. We all just want to laugh. We want to cry. We want to have dreams. You know, we reflect on our lives. You know, and we want to dance. And I think the world will feel that for sure.
It's been so much fun. I mean, honestly, it doesn't even feel like work. It just feels like you're coming on set every day and you're just having fun with people that you're getting to know really well, whether it's cast or even the crew. It's just like, probably hear this a lot, it's just one big family, really. I mean, I would definitely say from the rehearsal process, even before filming, just to be with the dancers and stuff like that, and all of us leads with them, and just like incorporating us with them, like not having us separate from them, but like being in the same room with them, and just like getting to feel that emotion that everyone was portraying, because the dance is just like really, I think, on a whole other level, that when people see these musical numbers, it's gonna blow them away to a whole nother world, where I feel like just something as small as that portrays into something as big as like us feeling like a whole family.
I knew probably at the table read, when everybody started making space for themselves in it, and you could feel everybody being in awe of everybody else. And it just, throughout the read, as it was going, people got better, more truthful, more whatever it was. It just felt like everyone was upping each other's game, and by the end, everyone was impressed with everybody else, including little Gregory, including Noah, who was a dancer and had never acted in his life, and it was Graffiti Pete now. I think there was just a sense of appreciation for each other. But then when I saw it on set was at the dinner, when we all were there and they were playing the music, and they were dancing with each other, and we're just riffing. There was nothing in the script really to like say, so they were just hanging out together. And I think they all agreed that it felt like a party they were with their families, and so they're making jokes that they would with their family. They were pulling up seats up to each other like they were that close with each other. That's when I knew it would translate to the movie itself. That is true chemistry and makes my life so easy.
The heart and soul of this movie, Paciencia y Fe, because it's true to like the journeys of all of the characters. They're all kind of like desperate to do something, and they want to do it fast. And during the, as time goes on and as the movie progresses, you get to see that they just needed to like kind of relax a little bit and settle in and be present in the moment. Because if you're living in the future, you're not really enjoying, and you're not really seeing what's right in front of you, which I think is true of Vanessa too. She's so adamant about moving downtown and like becoming a designer and people to see her differently. And that's all she's thinking about, and she's focusing her energy on that. So she doesn't see that the love of her life is right in front of her for the entire movie, and that people are actually trying to help her. She's like a tunnel vision, racehorse. So just, Paciencia y Fe. Paciencia y Fe is life motto.
I hope all who see this walk away feeling like, oh, I'm not alone. They walk away feeling hopeful about their tomorrow. I hope they walk away knowing that every story is important. There isn't one story that's more important than another. And that the world needs their story. And I hope they feel like they can love a little more. They feel open, their heart is opened up in a way that they've never felt before. And that this movie gives somebody the courage or the ability or that little extra thing to help someone love like they've never loved before.
John has he's just been so sure-footed about what he wanted. And I give him enormous credit for dreaming even bigger than I did. I always felt like, well, it's in the Heights, it takes place uptown, we're gonna be this tiny little indie musical. And John was the one who I think really learned on Crazy Rich Asians, like, we're allowed to take up space. There's no reason, In the Heights is a big musical. There's no reason we shouldn't take the big swings that the other mainstream musicals are taking. And there's no difference between us and them. And I really give him enormous credit for dreaming bigger than the rest of us and putting it all on screen.